Today on A Few Good Minutes, I'm joined by Deb Cartmer. She is the Programming Director for CFBU. Welcome to the show, Deb.
Thank you.
So Brock Radio recently had its AGM, and at the AGM there were some controversial decisions that were made. What exactly happened?
Well, they changed the bylaw. I'm not quite sure what the drama is all about, but you probably know that they changed the bylaw to change the positions that were formerly held by a BUSU and BUSAC councillor to student auxiliary, which basically means a student who's put in some volunteer time at the station.
So at the time that decision was made, was Brock Radio aware that that was violating the MOU?
Brock Radio doesn't think it's violating the MOU. So I think in their mind, I can't speak for the board and for everyone, but I think it's seen as a non-issue.
Speaker Chris Ventura of BUSAC recently came out with a decision on that, and in his interpretation, he called it illegal and invalid. So you wouldn't agree with that decision?
The reality is he's not a lawyer, and he's not a judge, and neither am I. So I don't want to make that call. Somebody who knows what they're doing should be making that call, and I'm not saying that to disrespect Chris at all. It's great that he's gone to that sort of level, but they really need someone who knows the law to make the call.
So would you say that there's currently no intentions to go back to the previous structure?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that, I think the feeling is that they feel they were well within their rights to do that, and so it's just business as usual. And in Canada, as far as I know, it's innocent until proven guilty. So I think the onus is on BUSU to prove, if they have a problem with that, to prove that it's really an issue there.
Would you say that the decision was partly made to add more student voices to the board?
Well, that's a good question, actually, because, I mean, the reason that it was done, the rationale that was given at the time, was because for all of last year, those seats remained empty. And there were 2 opportunities for students to have a voice on the board that were just empty for really crazy reasons. So yeah, I think the idea is to get those seats functioning, with students filling them and contributing. So yes.
So if that was the intention, to add more student voices, and why was it that recently Calviniti was not accepted as a member who applied for a position on the board?
Yeah, well, I can't answer for the members. They make the decision. That's how we've always voted, yes or no, and I wouldn't even want to guess on them. You know, someone took me to task today for asking a question last night, to Calvin, which was basically, wasn't it just last night that you were going to recommend that the committee review CFBU's MOU? And if that happens and it turns out not very well for CFBU, do you see yourself in a conflict if you're sitting on the board? And if that's the case, would you consider stepping down from CFBU or BUSU? So I can't tell you why people voted the way they did. I have no idea. But possibly it was part of that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So it was partly because he was a BUSAC councillor?
I don't really know the answer. It could be because, you know, they don't like him for some reason. I really don't know. I mean, can you tell people, ask people why they did or didn't vote, you know, a certain way? I really don't know. You'd have to actually talk to them to kind of figure that one out. Yeah.
So another decision that was made at the collective last night was that they added 2 more community seats.
Yeah.
What was the rationale behind that?
The rationale for that is that we have known for quite a number of years that our board structure is not in balance. And what that means is the CRTC requires the certain structure for boards for campus and community stations. And what they talk about a lot is balance. There has to be balance between the students, the university itself, and the community. And so we've always had 2 community members and 5 students and 1 faculty more recently in the last few years. So it has always been out of balance, and it's always been an issue. So we were told about a year ago, reminded, let's put it that way, that it was out of balance. And now, because we believe that the MOU is no longer in effect, and we were making changes anyway, it's time to deal with that and address that. And that, unfortunately, has been misinterpreted by some people as being, you know, weighing the board down with community members and trying to go rogue. I just read that on Twitter. That's hilarious. And that's really not the intent at all. It was just really to solve a problem that's been there for years that we need to address, essentially. Yeah.
So looking at the larger picture, is there any current plans for CFBU to regain funding, say, through a referendum? Is that something that the board's looking into?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, this is where things get a little weird. I am not aware of any plans by anyone at CFBU to run a referendum this year. However, there have been people who are not currently involved in CFBU, are not on the board, not officially volunteers, who've been out there behind the scenes since April, trying to convince people that having a referendum for CFBU is a good thing. I'm talking about BUSU and BUSAC people. And maybe their heart's in the right place, but the reality is no one actually involved with CFBU has any intent of running a referendum this year that I'm aware of.
If there are no plans for referendum, does CFBU have any kind of current plans for long-term funding in the future?
Well, of course, it's their duty to investigate, all the options and look at that. The interesting thing is when people take the board to task, let's say last night or other times, this is a brand new board, they've just been elected, so to harp at them about what their plans are, it's kind of premature, right? They haven't even met together officially as a full board. So obviously once they start to meet, that is a priority to try and figure out, where they're heading and what the plans are. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think they're going to look into things, yeah.
So we can't expect CFBU and Brock Radio to exist even if they don't get funding from BUSU or Brock?
Well, I would certainly hope so. I mean, obviously we're fine for 2 years and it's business as usual. I know I've said that to you before, but that's real. Nothing has changed. Students are still welcome. We're still training students. Students are still on the board. Everything is exactly the same. It just means we're not getting a check this year.
How do you see the relationship with Brock or BUSU or BUSAC moving forward? Do you think that they should play a role in the direction of CFBU and Brock Radio?
Well, I don't really see the role changing, that's why I keep using the word drama, but to me it is drama, nothing has changed, right? All we did was change 2 non-functioning seats to seats that we hope will function better, because we need to really buckle down and get cracking this year. So I don't really see any of that changing. There are players out there that are behind the scenes creating all kinds of drama and chaos that CFBU has had no part in. We've never said anything negative about BUSU or BUSAC lately. It's unfortunate Calvin didn't get elected, but I can't do anything about that. That's really their choice. So I've heard the terms war, which is hilarious. You see the little bubble on the videograph. It's hilarious, right? Because there's no drama between us. As I mentioned in the Brock Press article, which was a little strange, we have every year welcomed BUSU and BUSAC onto our board, except this year, because they didn't show up last year. So in my view, I can't speak for everyone, nothing has changed. So
you'd still like a relationship with BUSU?
Well, sure, however you define what that relationship is. I mean, to just jump outside of my role at CFBU, the goal is to always act in the best interest of the people who are benefiting from what we have to offer, which is a pretty amazing thing. So if I were BUSU, and I know that's not an entity, so if I was an executive at BUSU, if I was somebody on BUSAC, if I was really looking out for student interests, I would say, hey, we've got this amazing opportunity down there. Tell people about it, include us in things that are happening at Brock. Tell the students that there's this amazing opportunity down there. And for the last couple of years, some people involved in BUSU, some of the people in marketing or PR, different people have started to include us in different things, whether it's on the web page or different things. And so if BUSU and BUSAC want to help students get into a really great experiential learning opportunity, that's all they have to do is just tell students that we exist, send them on down. That's it. I mean, that's all they really have to do.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
My guest today was Deb Cartmer. She's the Programming Director with CFBU and Brock Radio.